Hi, friends. Heidi again with some updates, this time for Hot Docs International Documentary Film Festival, which is fully underway as of yesterday, April 29th, virtually across Canada. Hot Docs is by far one of my favorite film festivals in the city of Toronto, but just in general, it does offer some great lineups of documentary films, short form and feature length that I think are worth catching. So my purpose for the video today is that I'm going to list some of the films that I am interested in for different reasons, either the topic, the country, the filmmaker, or I just read the description and it sounds quite interesting. There may be a few that I've already screened because of I've been attending other virtual film festivals. So that's also how some of these films made it to this list. I will be going through the list a little bit quickly because I have more than 10 films to recommend to you. But all of this information about the films will be available at the festival website, hotdocs.ca. But I will repeat that at the end of the video. So without further ado, I should say. We're going to start with the film Who We Are, A Chronicle of Racism in America by Emily Kunster and Sarah Kunster. This film sort of started from a very important talk by ACLU Deputy Legal Director Jeffrey Robinson's. In his talk, he talks a lot about the history of anti-Black racism across the U.S. in terms of its history, legal history as well. And the film itself combines archival footage, interviews, and Robinson's own story. It's a film that I had a chance to screen at another festival, and I highly, highly recommend it. It's definitely a must-see, in my opinion, for anybody, especially in this time that we're living in. So that is Who We Are, A Chronicle of Racism in America. Next, I have Street Gang, How We Got to Sesame Street by Marilyn Argello. I saw this film again at another film festival, and it is such a great film. I cannot recommend it enough. The film is basically a really in-depth look inside the minds and the hearts of all of those involved in creating Sesame Street way back in 1969. So we're getting a really personal view of who the creators were, who the artists were, even the educators and the writers, the musicians, everybody so that came together behind the scenes to create this really, really important educational television show that's become influential across the world. So that is Street Gang, How We Got to Sesame Street. I also want to mention another film, Firestarter, The Story of Bangara by Wayne Blair and Neil Minchin. The film is about the start of Australia's Bangara dance theatre, and it is told through the stories of three Aboriginal brothers who are Stephen, David, and Russell Page. The film follows sort of their personal journeys. It actually incorporates visuals from for some of the theater's productions, history about the Aboriginal artists in Australia. It's all encompassing, it's very moving, very personal. I've also screened it because it also premiered at another festival, and I definitely recommend this film. Firestarter, The Story of Bangara. Also from another festival, we have The Sparks Brothers by Edgar Wright. And this is pretty much a love letter to the two brothers, artists who've influenced the musical world with their unique style. And I knew some of the songs by the Sparks Brothers, but I didn't realize how much work they've actually accomplished in their career. So take a look. It's quite interesting and also a lot of fun to watch. So that's The Sparks Brothers. Another film that I've been privileged to watch before from another festival is Fruits of Labor by Emily Cohen Ibanez. And it is really a poignant, moving, and at times emotional film about a California teenager who has to navigate her time going to school and working in some of the agricultural farms in California, strawberry berry picking, and other odd jobs to help sustain her family. And this is in the middle of dealing with the stress of raids from the immigration agency ICE. It is very timely, and as I mentioned, it's very poignant and personal, and it's actually given us a really interesting look at the migrant families that are the ones providing us the food and the fruits, the vegetables that we put on our tables every day. So that is Fruits of Labor. Next, I have Artificial Immortality by Shen. I know it was the opening documentary for the festival. And wow, I was very captivated by the film from its description, but I also had a chance to screen it. And it's basically starting with the question of, would you create an immortal version of yourself if you could? So the documentary is a personal sort of story from the director's perspective, sort of thinking of whether or not she wants to use artificial intelligence to create sort of an immortal avatar of herself. What does it actually mean to be immortal in this artificial intelligence kind of world? And I liked it because I'm very interested in neuroscience and science in general, and the idea of how do we use technology to sort of continue life, preserve memories, especially of those who may be elderly and suffering from dementia. So it creates a lot of discussion, in my opinion. So I really, really enjoyed watching this film. That's Artificial Immortality. I also have Dead Man's Switch, a Crypto Mystery by Sasha Mcdonald. And I wasn't sure what to expect from this film. I also managed to watch it already. And it basically tracks down an unsolved story, which is the death of Gerald Cotton, who was the CEO of Quadrig CX, a very large cryptocurrency exchange company based here in Canada, and sort of the mystery behind his sudden death, and how some of those funds were locked up because of his death, and no one had access to some of the keys or passwords to access the files. And there's a lot of other stuff going on in that story that is it makes for quite a good mystery, and there's deception, greed, corruption, and a lot of unanswered questions. But overall, it's a very well done film, and I found it quite interesting. That's Dead Man's Switch, a Crypto Mystery. Next on my list, I have The Face of Anonymous by Gary Lang, and it's a portrait of Commander X, a hacktivist, well-known figure in the community, and who also spends his days sort of trying to dodge the authorities while surfing the internet. So I'm looking forward to watching this film. I haven't been able to see it, so it's on my radar for the films to watch in the next few days. I also want to support and give a shout out to El Maya Telfeather's latest documentary, Gima Bibitsin, The Meaning of Empathy. And the film is a portrait of survival, love, and collective work of healing in the Kenai First Nation community in southern Alberta. I'm familiar with Telfeather's work, not just in documentaries, but also in future films. So congratulations on the directorial debut. I am very much looking forward to the film. And the name of the film again is Gima Bibitsin, The Meaning of Empathy. On my radar next, I have Gaucho Americano. Nicholas Molina is the director, and it's I haven't seen it. I'm just interested in watching sort of a look at what the labor conditions are for gauchos coming from Chile to the United States in looking in terms of work and the sacrifices that they make in order to help their families back home in South America. That's Gaucho Americano. I also have Any Given Day by Margaret Byrne. So the film chronicles the director's own mental health challenges, and sort of puts us or gives us a perspective of the real life of somebody who's been living with mental illness. But she also follows some people who've received I guess a specialized probation from the Chicago Cook County Mental Health Court, and that probation is based on a diagnosis. So I am very curious to see this film in terms of how it is to navigate the world with a diagnosis, and these labels and how they affect people in this situation. And again, the name of the film is Any Given Day. Also on my list, I have The Taste of Desire by Willemiek Clufoot. I hope I said that right. It's a film that takes us around the world, interlinking or interconnecting 5 personal stories and the way they connect to the oyster. Yes, you heard right, the oyster. I picked this film based on the trailer. I'm not gonna lie. It looks quite interesting. It sounds quite interesting. I like it when filmmakers try to connect stories from different parts of the world, and I guess showing us a little bit of our humanity. So I'm curious to see The Taste of Desire. Next, I have Canon Arm and the Arcade Quest by Hedegaard, and this came recommended by a pal who was also a film fan and suggested that I add this to my list. The film is about Kim Canon Arm, who is not your regular grandpa, apparently. He's a legendary fixture at Copenhagen's Bip Bip Bar and renowned for playing the 80s arcade game Gears, I think it's called, for 49 hours straight on one single coin. So that is sort of the basic description of the film. The trailer looks interesting, and again, it came recommended by a friend, so I'm adding this to my list, and I hope that you get to check it out as well. Next on my list, I have Magaluf Ghost Town by Miguel Angel Blanca out of Spain. The film sounds quite interesting, and it's a look at a notorious tourist resort out of the Spanish island of Mallorca. And I guess there's a mythical aspect to the place also. And the film is basically told from the local people's perspective, their point of view in sort of what it's like to live in this place that has mythical history to it, but also having to live through sort of the debauchery that some of the tourism industry brings in. So that is called Magaluf Ghost Town. Of course, I have to give a shout out to Young Chan's latest documentary, Wuhan, Wuhan. I've been following Chang's career for a long time now, and I'm always happy to see his work at Hot Docs. Wuhan, Wuhan is a work that came out of this pandemic that we're living in, where Chang and other videographers had access to Wuhan province and sort of followed a few people that were being directly affected by the pandemic. It is so full of humanity. I have seen the film, and it just kind of brings home the idea of community and how we sort of pulled together during the hardest times that we're faced so far. And I really liked the pacing of the film. I love the fact that they actually give us a lot of access to some of the people in Wuhan who were affected, and they come from, the everyday worker to the ER doctor to the psychologist who volunteered from a different province to help out. So definitely check out Wuhan, Wuhan. I also have Spirit to Soar by Tanya Talaga, another Canadian filmmaker. This film is based, or is trying to look at the healing and the story of the First Nations people in Thunder Bay. Back between 2000 and 2011 or so, 7 First Nations high school students died in the area. And there's a lot that came from that, and there was an inquest back in 2016, And the filmmaker, Tanya Talaga, returns to the place, Thunder Bay, and talks to family members and elders, and sort of is trying to reconcile and address why and how it is that these young people lost their lives, and sort of how that affects the entire community. That is Spirit to Soar. Next on my list, it also comes recommended by a few other people, Subjects of Desire by Jennifer Holness. And it's she's looking at the 50th anniversary of Miss Black America beauty pageant. And it looks into the contemporary meaning of the phrase, you know, in terms of also the shifting beauty standards across the world, and whether we're actually moving towards accepting Black aesthetics. Shout out to a couple of my friends who've written reviews on the film. I will link their reviews at the end of the video. So that is Subjects of Desire. Last but definitely not least on my list so far, I have 7 Years of Lucas Graham by Renee, Sasha, Johansen. In the film follows the band. Lucas Graham is a band from Denmark, and it follows the lead singer Lucas and his life from very humble beginnings in Denmark to performing at the Grammys, and sort of all of that, what happens in between. I haven't seen the film, but it comes well recommended, so I'm curious to see that as well. So these are some of the films on my list. I am hoping to catch most of them, the ones that I have not seen. The festival itself is totally impressive again this year. There's over 200 films from 66 countries, and there are 12 programs. And kudos to the programming team at Hot Docs for having 50% women directors as part of your selections. There's also other things I want to point out about Hot Docs this year. They have the Big Idea series, which is great. They offer Q&As that I think you can watch live. You might have to register online for some of these. Some of them may be on Facebook. I think there are some happening in the next few days. So that's the Big Idea series. For any other information on the festival, in terms of how you buy your ticket, stream through the computer to your TV, how it's available across Canada, please visit hotdocs.ca, and I'll be sure to add the link at the end of this video as well. I hope you managed to find something that you like based on the list that I've just mentioned, and happy hot docking.